If you're seeing this, it means the message found you just before the shift, not before an ending, but before a test, one so subtle it can't be measured by machines or seen by eyes, only felt by the quiet field between thoughts. The test takes place at the double slit, where light itself decides what to become. And in a way you've forgotten, that light has always been watching you. What if I told you that every moment of hesitation, every breath caught between fear and surrender, has been training you for this? You are about to step into a mirror that doesn't show reflection, it shows interference. At the double slit, light behaves as both particle and wave until someone observes it. When that happens, reality makes its choice. What no one tells you is that you are that observer. You always have been. The question is, what have you been observing into being? Every time you think you're waiting for a sign, the field is actually waiting for your coherence. Every time you say, "I'll believe it when I see it," the field whispers back, "You'll see it when you believe it." This is the quantum contract of consciousness, and right now, that contract is being tested. Humanity stands in a split pattern, like photons between possibilities. One path collapses into chaos and repetition. The other coheres into awareness and creative power. The deciding factor isn't the world outside, it's the observer inside. Maybe you've felt the tension lately. The timelines bending, days blending together as if time were no longer linear but elastic. Maybe you've noticed how emotion seems amplified, how small interactions ripple like waves across the people around you. That isn't your imagination. It's the field tightening before a shift, the way an instrument hums just before it's struck. You're feeling the pre-resonance of change. If you've been restless, forgetful, pulled between extremes of purpose and doubt, you're not malfunctioning, you're sinking. The old program of cause and effect is dissolving, giving way to a subtler architecture, cause as effect. Your thoughts no longer travel outward to change matter. They fold matter back toward themselves. It's the universe's way of asking, are you ready to observe deliberately? Or will you keep collapsing random outcomes? This isn't prophecy, it's pattern. It's how awareness self-corrects when it forgets its own authorship. Every collective moment of crisis throughout history, collapse, renaissance, revelation, has mirrored this same interference pattern. Chaos as unobserved potential, coherence as conscious creation. The final test isn't moral or intellectual, it's vibrational. Can you remain coherent when the field is disturbed? Can you stay as the sky when the clouds thicken? Before the shift completes, you'll be asked not by words, but by frequency, to choose how you'll observe reality itself. Not as an idea, but as a state of being. The double slit is no longer a physics experiment happening in a lab. It's the mirror of your own consciousness. Each decision you make, each breath you take, sends a photon of possibility into one slit or the other. Fear or freedom, contraction or expansion, automation or awareness. If you can meet the interference pattern without flinching, if you can breathe through the uncertainty instead of resisting it, you'll discover the secret every mystic and physicist has been hinting at. The universe isn't testing you. It's training you to remember you are the experiment and the observer, the question and the answer, the wave and the one who watches it collapse into form. This is your invitation to step to the edge of perception itself. Breathe once, with awareness. You're already standing at the double slit. The shift has begun. You've been living in a loop so seamless it convinced you it was freedom. Every morning you wake, your mind reboots. The same thoughts dressed in slightly different clothes. You check messages, recall yesterday's concerns, pick up invisible threads of unfinished emotion. Without realizing it, you've stepped back into the same simulation. The loop that runs not because life is repetitive, but because consciousness keeps observing the same frequencies of itself. This loop isn't punishment, it's architecture. It runs on a sequence so ancient and efficient that most humans never question it. Trigger breath, meaning action evidence. Something happens. You breathe in a certain pattern, short, shallow, protective. The body interprets that pattern as danger. The mind gives it meaning. I'm threatened. I must control. You act accordingly, defend, avoid, prove. And then the world mirrors your internal state, confirming the belief that started it all. Evidence gathered, loop complete. This is how reality quietly rewrites itself around your unconscious breath. The same event, witnessed from different states, produces different worlds. When you feel unsafe, you perceive limitation. When you feel open, you perceive possibility. Nothing external changed, Only the observer's coherence did. But because the brain is addicted to predictability, it keeps feeding you images that match yesterday's vibration. Like a film reel cycling through the same frames faster than your awareness can blink, it projects continuity where there is only choice. Think of your consciousness as a lens suspended over an ocean of probabilities. Every emotion you experience distorts that lens slightly, refracting the light of potential into familiar patterns. You call this my life. Yet beneath the surface, infinite versions of you are shimmering, waiting to be observed. The loop persists because the observer keeps confusing observation with reaction. You aren't seeing reality, you're replaying resonance. The real crisis isn't out there in the world's events. It's inside the space between stimulus and breath. The moment something triggers you, a tone of voice, a memory, an unmet expectation, your nervous system doesn't pause to ask what's true. It exhales the past into the present, overlaying the now with residue from then. The body tenses, the mind narrates, the field conforms, and the loop begins again, elegantly, invisibly, unchallenged. Every species evolves through feedback, and you are no different. But somewhere along the line, you forgot that feedback isn't failure, it's reflection. You mistook repetition for destiny, not realizing that each recurring pattern was simply life replaying the moment you refused to stay conscious. The universe isn't keeping score, it's keeping rhythm. Every unsolved lesson returns in slightly new form until coherence is restored. You call it coincidence when the same kind of person appears in your life again and again. You label it bad luck when opportunities vanish just as you reach for them. But from the field's perspective, it's a perfectly tuned echo, bringing you back to the same interference pattern so you can finally observe it differently. Not fix it, observe it. The shift from resistance to observation is what collapses the loop. Most people spend decades trying to change the content of their lives instead of the context of their perception. They rearrange relationships, locations, careers, never realizing they're only moving furniture in the same room of consciousness. The loop continues because the observer never leaves the chair. Awareness, not activity, ends the cycle. But awareness requires stillness, and stillness feels like death to an identity built on movement. This is the root of the perceptual crisis, now sweeping the planet. As the collective mind accelerates, the field amplifies every frequency you emit. Anxiety doesn't just stay in your body, it radiates into the shared field, magnetizing more situations that justify anxiety. The same happens with love, gratitude, or coherence. Reality is learning from your signal, and right now, the field is testing whether you can maintain that signal when the noise increases. You've felt it, the strange compression of time, the way weeks disappear, how you can barely recall what day it is. That's not fatigue, it's entanglement. The human timeline is folding in on itself, looping until the observer remembers how to expand it. When you become conscious of this, something extraordinary happens. The loop stops being a prison and becomes a laboratory. You begin to see the mechanism instead of just reacting to its output. You realize that triggers are invitations, that the breath is the reset button of creation. That meaning is optional, not mandatory. That action arising from coherence rewrites evidence itself. The formula that once trapped you, trigger, breath, meaning, action, evidence, transforms into a portal. Trigger awareness, stillness, coherence, creation. This is why the double slit matters. In the experiment, unobserved photons behave like waves, pure potential. Observed, they behave like particles, definite outcomes. The shift between the two doesn't happen in the photon. It happens in the observer's relationship to uncertainty. When you stop fearing uncertainty, the loop dissolves. You no longer collapse potential into the same predictable particles of habit. You allow waveforms of new reality to remain open long enough to become something miraculous. So, the crisis you're experiencing, the repeating relationships, the déjà vu decisions, the existential fatigue, is not evidence of failure. It's evidence that you're nearing the edge of the loop, that the field is preparing to graduate you into conscious observation. Every sensation of being stuck is simply friction at the threshold of transformation. Right now, the universe isn't asking you to be better, faster, or stronger. It's asking you to notice, to stay present in the interference pattern without labeling it, because the moment you can observe your own loop without judgment, you're no longer inside it. You're standing at the edge of the double slit, breathing coherence into chaos. And that, truly, is the beginning of freedom. You've heard the phrase the observer effect. In physics, it sounds clinical, something about measurement altering the outcome. But, in lived experience, it's intimate. Every breath you take, every subtle feeling you allow or suppress, alters the probabilities unfolding around you. Observation isn't just looking, it's participating. You don't observe reality from the outside, you weave it from within. Imagine the quantum field as a vast, invisible sea not of water, but of possibility. Each thought, emotion, and intention sends ripples across that sea. Some waves interfere, canceling each other out. Others meet in harmony and amplify into form. These ripples never stop moving, but most people have forgotten they are the ones creating them. They think life happens to them. They forget life happens through them. When you gaze into this field with a mind cluttered by fear, the waves scatter into noise. Nothing can cohere long enough to become matter. But when you hold awareness like a steady flame, calm, non-reactive, the waves begin to organize. Coherence is what turns probability into reality. It's not intensity that changes the field, it's clarity. Think of a tuning fork. Strike one fork, and the other begins to hum at the same frequency. The quantum field behaves the same way. It resonates with whatever tone your consciousness sustains. This is why chaos breeds more chaos, and why serenity magnetizes order. The field doesn't reward effort, it mirrors vibration. It doesn't respond to your words, it responds to the state beneath them. You've experienced this countless times without naming it. A stranger smiles at you on a difficult day, and suddenly the world feels softer. Or you enter a room tense from conflict, and the air itself feels heavy. These are field interactions, micro-quantum exchanges happening far beyond your awareness. What you call intuition or atmosphere is simply the body detecting shifts in coherence. When ancient texts spoke of faith that moves mountains, they weren't describing blind belief. They were describing resonance consciousness so coherent that the field itself reorganizes around it. Faith is a quantum frequency of unwavering alignment. Doubt scatters energy across many timelines. Faith collapses them into one. It's not superstition. It's physics translated through feeling. And emotion is the language of that physics. Thought provides direction, but emotion provides amplitude. It's like light needing both frequency and intensity to become visible. The field translates your emotions into structure. Fear creates fragmented light patterns. Love creates geometric symmetry. Gratitude produces coherence, and coherence stabilizes probability. You've been told emotions make you irrational. Yet emotion, when observed consciously, is measurement. It's awareness made tangible. When you feel something fully without resisting it, you're not indulging weakness. You're collapsing uncertainty into understanding. Every tear shed in awareness reorganizes the field toward wholeness. Every moment of authentic laughter expands the horizon of possibility. But coherence isn't sustained by constant positivity. It's sustained by honesty. Pretending to be light when you're fractured only splits the wave further. The field doesn't need you to fake serenity. It needs you to witness truthfully. When you can hold anger, grief, or confusion with compassion instead of suppression, those frequencies integrate rather than distort. The observer effect is not about controlling emotion, it's about harmonizing with it. This is why the universe feels responsive when you're calm and resistant when you're anxious. When you relax into awareness, you stop sending mixed signals. The field reads your consistency as permission to manifest. It's not a moral system, it's resonance mechanics. And your breath is the conductor. Each inhale draws potential from the wave state. Each exhale gives form to it. Breath is how consciousness modulates probability. Imagine your awareness as light shining through a moving pattern of water. When the surface ripples violently, the light refracts, chaotically distorted reflections, fragmented rainbows. When the surface stills, the reflection becomes clear. The light was always perfect, only the water needed calm. The same applies to you. The quantum field isn't broken. Your perception is simply turbulent from overthinking. Stillness clarifies it. This is why ancient mystics described creation as vibration, becoming form through attention. To observe is to bless. To bless is to stabilize. When you hold loving awareness toward anything, person, problem, or possibility, you reduce its entropy. The moment you see clearly without judgment, you are performing the most powerful act in existence. You're choosing what reality will remember. If you've ever felt déjà vu, That eerie sense that you've stood in a moment before. It's because you have across countless probability threads. Each time you face a decision, the field blooms with variations of you making different choices. The observer, centered in coherence, draws one branch into embodiment. The rest remain waves of potential, waiting for new observation. So when you think you've missed your chance, you haven't. The field holds every version of your possibility, but to retrieve it, you must change the quality of your observation, not the quantity of your effort. You don't reach into the future, you resonate with it until it emerges. This is what physicists glimpse at the double slit. Light behaving like awareness, awareness behaving like light. When no one watches, everything exists in harmony, wave after wave of potential dancing in the dark. The instant observation occurs, the dance collapses into choreography, the infinite into the particular, the possible into the personal. You've been collapsing the same choreography for years because you've been watching from the same emotional lens. But what if, right now, you could shift your observation not by forcing reality, but by softening your gaze? What if creation wasn't about making things happen, but about allowing them to cohere? The field doesn't demand devotion or mastery. It only waits for presence. The moment you become truly present, without trying to fix or analyze, coherence begins. It's a natural law. And coherence, once sustained, begins to change the probabilities that form your life quietly, gracefully, in ways that look like synchronicity but are really feedback from your own awareness. At the double slit of your own consciousness, every breath is an act of creation. Every feeling is a photon choosing form. Every thought is an observer leaning slightly one way or another. The test isn't about controlling the photons. It's about remembering you are the light observing itself. Long before equations and laboratories, human beings tried to describe what they felt moving through them when awareness touched mystery. They called it breath, wind, spirit, prana, ruach, pneuma, the same invisible motion that stirred the waters at creation. Every civilization built its own metaphor for the unseen field, and each one was trying to name the same thing, that life itself is a conversation between the still and the moving, the infinite sky and the clouds passing through it. The Egyptians spoke of the Ka and the Ba, two aspects of consciousness bound by breath. The Ka was the vital essence, the electric pulse of being that flowed through everything. The Ba was the traveler, the individual expression of that essence that could leave the body and wander among the stars. Between them existed a narrow threshold, a shimmering veil where the soul remembered its source. In the temples of Karnak and Luxor, initiates were trained to walk consciously in that in-between, to die without dying, to breathe between worlds. The walls of those temples were not just architecture. They were diagrams of the human body as a map of consciousness. Each chamber corresponded to an inner gate, each column a vertebra of the cosmic spine. The journey through stone mirrored the journey through self. At the end of the temple lay a small, empty room, the Holy of Holies, where the priest would sit in darkness, waiting for the first ray of morning light to pierce the narrow slit in the ceiling. That light, arriving only on certain days, illuminated a statue representing the god. To stand there was to witness the meeting of wave and particle, sunlight collapsing into a single beam, touching stone that symbolized spirit. The Egyptians called this moment the awakening of Ra, the instant when divine awareness entered matter. You can still feel its echo when dawn breaks and a single shaft of light cuts through your room, that silent recognition that something unseen just became visible. In Buddhism, this threshold is the moment of anapanasati, mindfulness of breath. The Buddha taught that between inhale and exhale lies the middle path, the place where craving and aversion lose their grip. To follow the breath was not merely to calm the mind, it was to witness impermanence directly. Each breath born and dying, each thought appearing and dissolving, all within the boundless sky of awareness. In the Pali texts, the breath is described as the bridge between the body's shore and the mind's shore. When you rest on that bridge, you're no longer trapped on either side. You're the river itself, flowing and still, timeless and transient at once. The Kabbalists saw the same truth through the tree of life. They taught that creation unfolded through 10 emanations, the Sephirot, descending like lightning from the infinite to the finite. But the final step, Malkuth, the kingdom, the material world, could only receive light if the upper vessels were aligned. To restore that alignment, one had to ascend the tree in consciousness, gathering scattered sparks and returning them to their source. Each ascent was a breath, each alignment a moment of coherence. The Hebrew word for spirit, ruach, literally means wind. When they said the breath of God moved upon the waters, they meant awareness vibrating through the field of probability. These metaphors from different lands were never meant to contradict one another. They were complementary languages describing the same experiment long before we named it quantum. They understood that the universe doesn't reveal its secrets through dissection but through participation. To become still enough to feel the invisible currents moving through you is to stand in the same silence that built pyramids and carved mandalas. You might imagine the field now as an ancient river running beneath every culture's myth. The Egyptians called it the Nile of the soul. The Buddhists called it the stream of awareness. The mystics of Kabbalah called it the current of the divine name. It is the same river flowing under the double slit, the same motion that allows light to decide what it will become. To live consciously is to become a bridge between heaven and earth, between the unseen and the seen. The sky does not chase the clouds, it allows them. The river does not resent its banks, it fills them. And you, when you learn to observe without grasping, become both sky and river, limitless, yet capable of shape. In the Egyptian papyri, there's a phrase carved above the temple gates: "Know yourself, and you will know the gods." They weren't speaking of egoic self-knowledge, but of awareness as mirror. When you breathe with presence, you are performing the same act as that ancient priest in the dark chamber, waiting for light to enter matter. Each inhale is the invitation, each exhale is the offering, and the stillness between them is the doorway through which the eternal steps into time. Across millennia, mystics have whispered the same paradox: the observer and the observed are one. Whether you call it Ra's light, Buddha's awareness, or the breath of Ruach, the message is identical. Creation awakens through your seeing. The double slit was built into consciousness long before science noticed it in light. So when you next find yourself caught between choices, between what was and what will be, remember this lineage. You are standing in the ancient temple again, beneath the same cosmic slit. The light of awareness waits above. Your body is the statue below. When breath and stillness align, the beam descends. Matter remembers it is divine. And you, for an instant, recall that observing is not looking outward, it's letting the infinite look through you. Now that you understand how ancient eyes saw the field, it's time to experience it, not as theory, but as living texture moving through your own body. What you are about to practice is not a technique to fix anything. It's a way of remembering what's already functioning perfectly beneath your reactions. Consider it a return to your natural design. Before you begin, remember this. This is an educational and contemplative exercise. If you have medical conditions affecting breath, movement, or circulation, modify gently or simply visualize the process. Nothing here replaces medical care. You're not trying to manipulate your body. You're learning to listen to it. Find a place where you can sit upright but relaxed. Let your spine feel as though it's being quietly lifted from within, not held by effort but by curiosity. Close your eyes not to escape the world, but to notice it from the inside. Take a normal breath first, just to sense where it begins. Don't change anything yet. Where does the breath seem to start? Chest, throat, belly? Does it feel scattered, shallow, steady? Let yourself see this honestly. Awareness itself begins the reorganization. Now, draw a slow breath in through your nose, as though you're pulling light through a narrow doorway at the center of your chest. Feel the air expand downward rather than upward, filling the base of your ribs, softening your abdomen. Count to 4 not rigidly, but like the rhythm of waves approaching shore. At the top of the inhale, notice a pause, a brief stillness, a suspended moment where everything waits. This is the first slit, the opening of potential. Exhale through the mouth for the same count, allowing your body to settle as if it's releasing unnecessary stories. At the bottom, there's another pause. This is the second slit, the gate of manifestation. Between these two stillnesses, your consciousness travels back and forth like light choosing form. Do this for several cycles. Inhale, potential. Pause, awareness. Exhale, expression. Pause again, integration. You are recreating the rhythm of the cosmos in micro form. As you breathe, begin to feel that the air entering you is not separate from the field around you, it is the field. With every inhale, you are drawing coherence from the universe. With every exhale, you're returning it amplified with your own signature of awareness. After a few minutes, shift attention from the breath to the sensations beneath it. Feel your feet on the floor, the anchor points of matter. Sense the weight of your body, the steady pulse of your heart. Imagine the breath descending through you like a river, washing the spine, collecting tension as it flows. On the exhale, picture that river returning to the ocean of the field, carrying away residue that no longer serves you. You don't need to release consciously. The field knows what to take. Your only role is noticing. If thoughts arise, don't chase them away. They are clouds moving across the same sky. Label them gently as thinking and return to the sensation of breath. In time, you may notice that the boundary between inhalation and exhalation blurs. Breathing happens, yet there's also the one watching it happen. That watcher, still, silent, unhurried, is the observer. Each time you recognize it, you strengthen coherence. For daily life, apply micro-protocols. Before opening your phone, take one conscious breath. Before entering a conversation, one breath. Before responding to a trigger, one breath. This simple act reintroduces stillness into the circuit of cause and effect. The breath becomes a hinge between reaction and creation. In that hinge lies all freedom. If you wish to deepen the practice, try this. Place a hand over your heart and imagine a soft light pulsing there. Synchronize your breathing with that rhythm until it feels like light and air are moving together. You are harmonizing electromagnetic and emotional fields, science and soul in dialogue. After a few minutes, shift awareness outward. Imagine the calm radiating about 8 feet around you, a subtle sphere of coherence. You don't have to see it. You'll feel the space around you become thicker, quieter, as if sound itself is listening. This is your personal field stabilizing. Throughout your day, return to this awareness in small doses. While waiting at a light, feel the air entering your nostrils and exiting slowly. While someone speaks, listen not only to words but to the silence underneath them. While walking, match your steps to your breath. Inhale for 3, exhale for 3 until movement and awareness merge. Each of these moments trains you to remain at the double slit consciously. Over time, you'll notice subtle changes. Reactions lose urgency, emotions become less sticky, more fluid. Synchronicities increase. These are not signs of something magical occurring. They are feedback from a nervous system that has remembered its natural coherence. The field mirrors stability. The purpose isn't to escape emotion, but to become vast enough to hold it. Breath after breath, you cultivate a kind of transparent strength, flexible, luminous, unbreakable. You realize the body isn't an obstacle to enlightenment but its instrument. Every inhale carves a channel through which awareness can flow into matter. Every exhale completes the circuit, returning information to the source. If you can live even one day, remembering this rhythm, breathe, pause, observe, you'll start sensing life differently. Traffic noise will sound like pulse. Waiting will feel like preparation. Silence will become communication. This is not imagination. It's perception purified of interference. The same awareness that once watched photons now watches you. The test is not whether you can control the experiment, but whether you can stay awake inside it. Practice until the breath disappears into presence, and only the observer remains calm, luminous, aware that even without trying, you are breathing the universe and being breathed by it. There comes a moment, often quiet, when you realize you've been living as the observed rather than the observer. For years, you've been reacting to events as though they define you, your worth measured by results, your peace dependent on outcomes. But something in you begins to see through the illusion. You start to notice the subtle difference between what happens and who is noticing what happens. That's the threshold where transformation begins, not by effort, but by recognition. You can feel this shift when a familiar challenge arises and, instead of collapsing into the old storyline, you pause. The breath enters slower, your eyes soften, and you witness your own narrative forming. They don't understand me. I'll fail again. I have to fix this. Yet this time, you don't believe it. You're watching it unfold like a film you've seen too many times. That tiny moment of disidentification, barely half a second, is the double slit opening in your consciousness. You're no longer trapped in the particle of personality. You're resting again in the wave of potential. This is where the shift from victim to creator happens, not because you suddenly gain power over reality, but because you remember you've always been part of its creative rhythm. The field doesn't demand perfection. It invites participation. Creation is not commanding. It's collaborating. You breathe with reality rather than against it. To embody this, let's step into 3 mirrors of everyday life: money, relationship, and leadership. Each is a reflection of how you breathe with the field. Money. Most people chase money as if it's a foreign current flowing somewhere outside of them. They breathe shallowly around it, tight chest, held diaphragm, a constant hum of not enough. This constriction broadcasts scarcity, and the field responds in kind, reflecting the same pattern. But when you observe the breath of abundance, something remarkable occurs. You realize that money is simply energy seeking coherence. It moves toward clarity like water toward low ground. The more open and relaxed your breath, the more freely energy circulates through you and through your life. When you approach decisions from coherence rather than contraction, opportunities appear that effort alone could never summon. The practice: before any financial action, take 3 slow breaths. Ask, am I acting from fear or from flow? That one question changes your frequency, and the field adjusts accordingly. Relationship. The greatest illusion of separation occurs here. We think others are triggers. They are actually mirrors. Every emotional surge is a resonance test. When conflict arises, most people tighten their breath, preparing for defense. But defense is simply the body's way of saying, I'm afraid to feel this fully. The observer approach is different. When tension surfaces, notice your breath before your words. Inhale through the nose, acknowledging the shared field between you. Exhale slowly, letting judgment dissolve. This pause breaks the chain of reactivity. Suddenly, you're not arguing. You're witnessing 2 nervous systems communicating. From this state, compassion becomes natural, not forced. Coherence doesn't mean agreement, it means understanding that both frequencies belong to the same field. Leadership. True leadership isn't control. It's coherence made visible. Whether you lead a company, a family, or your own inner voices, the principle is identical. Your state organizes the states around you. People don't follow plans, they follow frequency. A leader who breathes in alignment turns chaos into rhythm simply by existing. Before entering a meeting, take 1 breath for clarity, 1 for humility, 1 for service. Remember that each person you meet is another version of the same field, testing whether your coherence can hold. When you lead from observation, not domination, authority becomes presence, and decisions become elegant rather than exhausting. Across these scenes, a common pattern emerges. Story follows state. The old loop taught you the opposite, that your state follows the story. You believed circumstances caused emotion, but in truth, emotion sculpts circumstance. You can feel the shift the moment you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what frequency am I emitting through my response? At first, this awareness feels fragile. You'll slip back into reaction, identify with roles, forget to breathe. But each time you notice, coherence rebuilds faster. Eventually, awareness stabilizes like a gyroscope. It keeps you balanced even in turbulence. That's when life becomes less about controlling outcomes and more about refining alignment. Think of a musician tuning an instrument. At first, they strike the strings, listening for discord, adjusting, listening again. Over time, the tuning becomes intuitive. That's coherence in motion. Constant refinement without resistance. You become less concerned with playing perfectly and more devoted to staying in tune. When you live this way, even mistakes sound harmonious because they serve the greater rhythm. This is the turning point. Recognizing that alignment is power, not force. The universe isn't withholding blessings, it's matching your frequency. The final test at the double slit is whether you can remain coherent while uncertainty swirls. When you can, interference patterns resolve into harmony. The same photons that once scattered now form luminous patterns of meaning. So, as you walk into the next challenge, financial, emotional, creative, don't ask what you should do. Ask who is breathing you in that moment. The victim breathes from fear, the creator breathes from coherence. One constricts the field, the other expands it. The difference isn't moral, it's vibrational. Every breath is an opportunity to choose again. Every pause is a miniature double slit, waiting for your observation to collapse potential into form. The field doesn't demand effort, it asks only this: will you breathe as the one being affected, or as the one creating the effect? That is the real graduation. When you understand that the universe isn't testing you, it's mirroring you, you stop trying to pass and start choosing to participate. And in that participation, you discover what all creators eventually learn. Life doesn't respond to control, it responds to coherence. When you finally reach this understanding, a strange calm enters the body. Not the numb stillness of retreat, but the luminous quiet of recognition. You begin to see that nothing in existence has ever been against you. Every obstacle, every detour, every heartbreak was the field's way of sculpting precision into your awareness. The universe never punished your forgetfulness, it merely echoed it until you could hear yourself again. In this awareness, dignity returns. You no longer chase meaning as though it were hidden somewhere ahead. You feel meaning unfold with each breath you take, each word you speak, each gaze you offer to a stranger. Dignity is not pride, it's coherence given form. When you move from the observer's state, even the simplest action, washing a cup, holding a door, listening without interrupting, becomes an act of quiet artistry. Stillness becomes public art. This is what the sages meant when they said enlightenment isn't a mountain peak but a marketplace. It isn't a halo above your head. It's the quality of your presence while paying for groceries, while comforting a friend, while forgiving someone who doesn't yet understand. The field measures coherence, not ceremony. When you stand in this stillness, you see humanity differently. The anger of others no longer shocks you, it reads like static in the signal. The suffering of the world doesn't paralyze you, it calls you to greater coherence. You realize compassion isn't pity. It's remembrance that everyone is the same field, learning itself in different disguises. The man shouting in traffic, the child lost in distraction, the woman meditating on a mountain, they are all expressions of the same wave. The only question is, who's remembering and who's still dreaming? Stillness teaches belonging. Not the belonging of groups or flags or belief systems, but the belonging that precedes identity itself. You belong because you are. The sky doesn't need to prove it owns the clouds. The ocean doesn't need to justify its waves. Existence includes itself automatically, and so do you. When you rest as awareness, inclusion stops being an effort, it becomes the nature of perception. Agency, in this light, becomes gentle. You no longer demand that reality obey your personal timeline. You participate in the larger intelligence moving through you. Action arises, yes, but it's infused with a deep sense of partnership. You act not to force outcomes but to reveal harmony. Your work, your creativity, your relationships, all of it becomes choreography guided by coherence rather than competition. You become less a doer and more a dancer. The paradox deepens. The more still you become, the more alive the world appears. Trees shimmer differently, faces soften, random encounters feel orchestrated. You realize the same intelligence that arranges galaxies, arranges coincidences. The universe is self-aware, and awareness is your true nature. When you align with that truth, life stops being a sequence of problems and becomes a symphony of participation. If you listen closely, you can feel it now, the subtle hum beneath thought, the quiet pulse behind sensation. It's the same vibration that once sang through the pyramids and temples, through monasteries and synagogues, through forests and deserts. It never left. It only waited for you to stop rushing long enough to hear it again. That hum is coherence. That hum is home. What happens next in your life will still contain challenge, beauty, loss, and growth. But you'll no longer confuse turbulence with chaos. You'll understand that storms refine the sky, not destroy it. You'll face uncertainty, not as an intruder, but as a collaborator. You'll breathe into difficulty until it reveals its hidden intelligence. And when you fail, and you will, because creation loves imperfection, you'll smile. You'll recognize the loop trying to reappear, not as punishment but as practice. Each return to awareness strengthens the bridge between your human fragility and your infinite essence. Each conscious breath writes a new geometry into the field. The purpose of awakening was never to escape the human story, but to inhabit it fully, illuminated from within, to live as coherence among noise, to offer presence where others offer panic, to remember, in the face of forgetting, that the light at the double slit has always been you observing yourself into being. When you walk outside after hearing this, notice how reality meets your gaze differently. The air feels thicker, as though listening. Every object, every person, every sound is part of a vast orchestration tuned to your awareness. You're not imagining it. The field has recognized its observer. You can still make plans, strive, create, love, but now from a grounded grace. You'll know that all true power lies in balance, humility without shrinking, confidence without arrogance, action without aggression, stillness without apathy. You become a mirror that neither exaggerates nor diminishes what it reflects. This is agency without grandiosity, awareness knowing itself through form. When you breathe as the observer, life becomes less about achieving coherence and more about being coherence. You realize that existence doesn't need saving or fixing. It simply longs to be seen clearly. And when you see clearly, you heal the fabric of the world by your very seeing. So take a moment now, in the space between sentences, to feel the quiet intelligence that fills the room around you. It's been here since the first photon danced through the cosmic slit. It waits patiently in every pause between breaths. It knows your name, but more importantly, it knows your silence. Let that stillness speak through you. That is what it means to pass the final test. Now, stay with me for just a moment longer. What you've heard tonight isn't a lecture or a theory, it's a remembering. And remembering requires integration. So, before you move to the next thing, let's anchor this frequency together. Wherever you are seated, standing, lying down, allow yourself to pause. Let the outside world dissolve for a few breaths. This is not performance. It's a ritual of coherence. Close your eyes gently. Let your shoulders drop. Feel gravity holding you, the same way the field holds light. Now, inhale through the nose for a count of 4. Let that breath rise, soft and round, as though you're pulling dawn into your lungs. Hold it just for a heartbeat until you feel the still point. Exhale slowly through the mouth for a count of 4, releasing not tension, but identity. The masks, the striving, the noise. Again, inhale. Imagine you're drawing awareness from the stars, through the crown of your head, down into your heart. Pause. The universe inhales with you. Exhale, letting the breath return to the field. Notice how the boundaries blur where you end and everything begins. There's no difference, only awareness breathing itself. One final breath, deep and deliberate. Inhale, coherence. Pause, stillness expands. Exhale, gratitude into the field that has always been listening. Let it know you remember. Now, bring to mind one word, just one that captures the essence of what you wish to embody from this point forward. It could be trust, clarity, love, presence, freedom, truth. Don't overthink it. The field will choose for you. Feel that word resonate in your chest like a tuning fork. Sense it vibrating through your breath, through your skin, through the empty space between your thoughts. And now, with calm conviction, say it inwardly or softly aloud. I choose to, your word, as the observer. This isn't an affirmation, it's an encoding. The field will remember this vibration and echo it back through circumstance, synchronicity, and silence. The word is your new signature, your personal slit through which reality will collapse into coherence. Stay here for one more still moment. Feel the pulse in your fingers, the gentle hum in the air around you. That is life acknowledging you, observer and observed reunited. When you open your eyes, do it slowly. See the world not as a collection of objects, but as waves shimmering in recognition. You have passed no test. You have simply remembered the nature of light. You are the bridge between breath and matter, between stillness and movement. Every moment forward is an invitation to breathe consciously, observe clearly, and act coherently. If this message resonated with something ancient inside you, stay connected not just to this channel, but to this frequency. Subscribe so that these transmissions can reach others who are ready to remember. Every subscription, every share, every whispered reflection helps the collective field stabilize in coherence. And as you step back into the rhythm of your life, carry this silence with you. Let every breath remind you that you are the observer at the double slit, the one who decides how light will move. The shift isn't coming. The shift is happening every time you breathe in awareness. So breathe, not to survive, but to align. Not to fix, but to remember. Not to awaken, but to stay awake. You are the field. You are the slit. You are the light that passes through. Welcome home, observer. Welcome to coherence. Now, subscribe to this frequency and continue the experiment.